Hi, today's learning objective is going to be stovetop smoking. That's not where you sit on the stovetop and smoke. It's actually building a small stovetop smoker, and you can get the parts at pretty much any restaurant supply store. But make sure if you do that you use high quality stainless steel, and you can get the smoking chips at pretty much any home improvement store, Home Depot, Lowe's, for if you're on the East Coast, Menards, any of those places will have the chips. Stay tuned. Alright, so on this plate right here I've got boneless center cut pork loin. And the reason that I chose this is because it's going to cook more consistently in a smoker than it would if it had a bone in it. And these are fairly thick, and the reason for that is because we're just going to start them in our stovetop smoker, and we're going to finish them in the oven. If you smoke these for too long, it's going to taste like chewing on Grandpa's old tobacco. So we're just going to put them in the stovetop smoker for a few minutes to impart that smoky flavor. Then we're going to finish them in the oven. That's a common technique used in many professional kitchens where you start something in a pan and finish it in the oven, and that's so that you get a more consistent cook on it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some of my kosher salt, and I've started the stovetop smoker, and you want it to smoke very, very slowly. If you have too big of a flame, you're going to end up with a forest fire, and if you don't have enough, it's going to take too long and your pork will dry out. So there really is kind of a fine line between too much heat and not enough. Now if you wanted to get really adventurous with this, you could brine a pork loin, a whole pork loin, in sugar, salt, bay leaves, peppercorns, and water. Or you can rub it with, say, maple syrup. That would be a nice addition. So I've cracked my pepper on the top, and I'm going to pull the top off of my stovetop smoker. You can see I've got a nice, good amount of smoke rising in here. You want that. You don't want to throw your meat in your smoker until it's got smoke built up. Now in this I've got mesquite chips, which are very strong, and this is just a deep, what's called a hotel pan. This is stainless steel, and then a perforated hotel pan on top. And the reason that I chose such a deep one is so that it really develops a nice swirling smoke. That's what you want. So I'm going to lay this in here. And again, we're only going to put this in here for a couple of minutes with the top on it. Let's season the other side. I actually had a student here one time in Santa Fe ask me if he had to season both sides of the meat. And I looked at him and said, "Are you going to eat both sides of the meat?" He said, "Yeah, chef, but that's too much work." Let me debunk that myth right now. Anything worth doing culinary-wise is going to be a little bit of work. But with some intentional preparation, you can cut the amount of work down considerably just by being prepared and having your mise en place together before you ever start. So I'm going to crack the pepper on here. And then we're going to put the top back on here and just let these things sit in here for just a matter of maybe 5 minutes. You don't want to get too much. This will also work with chicken, with duck, with beef. You probably wouldn't want to smoke lamb. That would probably give you kind of a really off flavor. Salmon would be another good one. If you can grill it, you can smoke it. So come on right back. We're going to take this out of the smoker, finish it in the oven, and that's that. For our smoked pork loin plate, we're going to saute some spinach, and I've got a sweet potato roasting. The more colors you eat, the more color variation in your diet, the healthier your diet. So with the sweet potato, we have bright orange, which is high in beta carotene, and with the spinach, we have high fiber and iron. So I've got my pan really hot, got my olive oil in there, and I'm going to add my garlic. You may notice from these episodes that I cook with a whole lot of garlic. I cook with a whole lot of garlic. I just love the flavor that garlic gives it. Now I'm going to add my spinach to this hot oil, just like that. I'm not going to blanch it first, nothing. I love eating spinach this way. After you eat, you should feel healthy, you should feel lighter, you should feel sated. If you feel heavy, tired, grouchy, you're eating probably too much and too much of the wrong thing. Now the trick with spinach when you're sauteing it is you have to do it a la minute, which means right before you use it. And you slightly undercook it because the spinach is going to continue to cook even after you take it off the stove. That's called carryover cooking. And that has been the bane of many a cook. You don't want to overcook this because if you do, once again, you leach out all the nutrients, and what's the point of eating it if it doesn't taste good, doesn't look good, and isn't good for you? So it's just starting to wilt. And by wilting it means that the leaves are wilting, I guess. They're starting to become soft. They're starting to flop over, and that's what you want. Now, when I buy spinach here, I always buy the triple washed. And the reason being is we live in a desert climate, and water is our most precious resource. I don't want to have to waste more water than necessary to clean a head of spinach. And also, you can't ever seem to really get all that grit out. And grit is the number one reason that people don't like eating spinach. That, and they often eat it when it's overcooked and it doesn't taste good. So you'll see that I've got a nice, beautiful, bright color here. And I've got my roasted sweet potato. Now I just roasted this right in the oven. I didn't pop the skin. I just washed it and put it right in. And then when it was done, I peeled the peel off. So there's no additional fat, no additional calories. It is what it is. It's good for its own sake. I'm going to put my spinach here, and then my smoked pork loin, when it comes out of the oven, we're going to put right here. Come on back. Here's our finished product, our smoked pork loin, which we finished in the oven. And I finished this in the oven at 500 degrees. And the reason that I did that was so it would cook quickly. There's not a whole lot of fat in this particular cut of pork. Primarily, you get a fat cap around the edges, and you can cut that off after cooking it. The reason I say after cooking it is fat is flavor, and this is going to continue to kind of baste it while it's cooking. If you cut it off, it will curl up like a Latin shoe, and it'll be dry and somewhat tough. So here we have our smoked pork loin, which we added no additional fat to. Our spinach, which was cooked in olive oil, which is a monounsaturated fat, garlic, olive oil, salt, and pepper, and our sweet potato that was roasted by itself in its own skin. So you've got a nutritionally dense, low-fat, low-calorie dinner that probably took me about 10 to 15 minutes altogether to put together. So with a little bit of planning, you can eat like this every day, which will prolong your life and at least make you feel better for the time being. And isn't that what we all want, to feel better and to look better? Well, I'm going to go eat this now. I'm hungry after all these good smells. You all have a great day.